We'd like to welcome you to the Heart Leader Podcast, where heart and mind align. I'm your host, Amber, and I'm here with co-host Austin, and we'd like to know, do you have a passion to make a greater global impact? Are you ready to embrace leading with heart and love? If so, join us on this journey to become heart leaders who change the world. Each episode brings heart-centered connection, building stronger relationships, communities, and businesses. Let's take a deeper dive into what it means to be heart leaders. The Heart Leader Podcast starts now. Hi, and welcome to the Heart Leader Podcast. I am Amber, and today I am joined by my dear friend and someone that has done so much for individuals right here in the Sweet Bay Area community, Jim Gibson. Jim has started an organization called Empowered Fitness, and his focus is on biomechanics and human movement. He has more than 15 years of dedicated focus in this field, and he's created some amazing courseworks and an ability to help individuals really understand the importance of movement. And I don't want to take up all kinds of time telling you about him when he can tell you about himself. So, Jim, I know when I first met you, it was because we had a shared client who was really focused on movement and the integrated approach that plays in health and wellness overall. And that person had found you through your organization.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about why somebody who would have been talking to me about nutrition and all of that integrated approach would come to you about biomechanics and human movement?
Sure, absolutely. I also want to say that introduction, I'm probably going to use that as a voiceover for something on a website or a video or something, because I don't have anything that's as good as that has flowed like that and promoted well. So I'll probably chop that out of this, I think, and then put it on some of my stuff.
Well, yeah, that's just how we feel about you.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to know. So, our shared client actually found me by working with one of my other clients. And so they, through word of mouth, became a referral of mine. And he, I think there's no secret that he has a little bit of an obsessive personality when it comes to like detail and making sure that he's got kind of a controlled environment for himself, right? And so I think he was attracted to what I offered to him because the people that referred him had a history of orthopedic injury. And that's kind of a specialty of mine, to work with people who are looking to get into fitness, whether it's for a health goal or for maybe some kind of a hobby that they enjoy they're not really able to enjoy anymore because of that injury. And so they were fans of mine because of that, getting them back to where they wanted to be for that stuff. And they thought that he would be a good fit with me because of the kind of structured approach I take to that. And that's the history of it. He still works with me as an online client today, actually. So I provide him his workouts, and he's able to do them on his own. He seems to be enjoying them so far.
That's awesome. So when you say structured in what way?
There's a few different ways that I kind of try to provide structure for my clients. The first one is that when they're working with me, let's say it's someone who's looking to work with me 3 times a week. I only really schedule clients on a structured, timely basis. So if that person is Monday, Wednesday, Friday is kind of the classic example of a 3-time-a-week client. If I have 8 a.m. available for that person, and that works for them consistently week to week, that is now their time, that no one else who starts with me newly is able to take, or another client who's looking to move times, unless they have some kind of an agreement where they're like, okay, I have to catch a plane because I'm going out of town for some reason, would your other client be willing to switch with me? And then we kind of do a permission kind of thing. And that's the exception. That's definitely not what happens consistently. I'm looking for a time that they can commit to and do that week in, week out in a normal kind of setting, or a standard kind of week to week model. Because I've found that if I have this, okay, what do you want to do next week kind of approach, time-wise, what do you want to schedule for, then they just kind of get scheduled through. And so work gets in the way, or family stuff, or I need a break today, or whatever it is. It's not so much, okay, 8 a.m. is my time to work out and exercise and be healthy and kind of reflect on whatever it is I need to do to be that healthier person on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's my time to do that. It's more like an appointment that is not pushed around or like rescheduled or anything like that. So it's kind of like that's the first ground approach when I'm interacting with a new client. I also look to talk to them about what their goals are up front. We kind of do like an interview initially. And we do goal setting, which is a pretty common practice. What is it you're looking to do? What are your sleep habits like? All these kind of things that like lead into their overall health. Instead of just getting to exercise more, we're trying to recreate like a litany of habits here. And let's see, going into the workouts themselves, for myself, my structure tends to be, okay, I've got an hour to work with this person. I need to look at what their goals are, what kind of physical limitations have they had? Did I notice any asymmetries when I first started working with them, and did a little bit of a screen on them? And so the workout is then kind of structured in that fashion to satisfy what I've determined to be any shortcomings or asymmetries that need to be addressed, things like that. So there's a structure for the client that I kind of try to impose upon them, and there's a structure for myself that I impose upon myself to kind of get that person to what I believe is an optimal kind of training model for themselves.
That's awesome. For somebody who doesn't know what asymmetry means.
Yeah, so asymmetries are if I've got, let's say I'm reaching overhead. I'm not sure how high our cameras go here, so I've got long arms. But if I'm reaching overhead, my right arm is able to get this much motion, my left arm is able to get this much motion in what we call shoulder flexion, then that would be an asymmetry. Right arm's got a good degree of range of motion, left arm's limited. And as I'm doing a movement screen on someone, that would be something that would show up pretty easily.
Okay. What would that have to do with somebody's overall health? Because I know you just mentioned you look at the overall health. Mm-hmm. How would asymmetry or an arm being able to move more one direction than another direction, mm-hmm. what part would that play?
Well, there's a few different reasons that that's important. The first one might be that there's some kind of underlying cause that has created that asymmetry, and we need to figure out what that is and address it. If that's something that is like a muscle imbalance, or if that's a shoulder that's maybe not functioning correctly in terms of like maybe there's a structure in there that's getting in the way. Maybe they've developed something called a lesion on the bone that actually, when the bone basically runs out of room, and as you're reaching up, it's running into that like kind of bony protuberance, that lesion. That's something potentially needs to be addressed because that can lead to a tear or like tendinitis or a host of other ailments. So that's one approach to take to it. The other approach is just functionality. If someone has a shoulder that is less mobile and they're constantly using that one, there could be an ailment that starts to appear on the right arm because it's getting overused, or it could be that this one continues to worsen because now they're avoiding it. It's just becoming more and more restricted in its movement, depending on what the underlying cause is. And you can take that to any part of the body. If someone has a hip that is maybe underdeveloped in terms of strength on the right side versus the left side, well, now I'm kind of leading with my left leg all the time. This leg's continuing to get worse and worse, and now I'm a fall risk potentially. I might not be able to undulate or walk in a way that is kind of conducive to like a healthy spine, or my knees start getting beat up or something like that. And you have this, we call it the kinetic chain, but whatever the weakest link in that chain is, whether it's your lower back or your knees or your foot and ankle, wherever that weak link is where some kind of an ailment will start to rear its ugly head. And that could be plantar fasciitis, or that could be chronic low back pain, or herniated disc, or something like that.
So it really is kind of anytime there's something going on, that can be an entry point for other things to build upon. So someone like you who has the awareness, you can get in there and see that early enough. Mm-hmm.
And physical therapists are, in my opinion, I've worked with them for so long that I have a great deal of respect for them. They are the ones that are extremely well equipped to identify and evaluate and find those asymmetries. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, they don't get their hands on people until it's truly a problem. Someone has developed low back pain now. It's not something that has been caught by whatever the cause was initially, or someone has developed a frozen shoulder. It's not been addressed because they had a limited range of motion. and it was able to, that person avoided using it and continued to get worse or what have you. So I think that's where fitness has a good ability to kind of be the first line of defense for that kind of stuff and be very preventative. Make sure that people don't necessarily have to go to physical therapy and pull on their insurance. You can actually be upfront with this kind of stuff and attack it instead of waiting for something to go wrong. You can be a little bit more proactive in conjunction with achieving whatever your health goals are. If that's body fat loss, fantastic. If you're feeling the need to get stronger because you want to be a more avid hiker, or you're wanting to get into running and you're worried about banging up your knees or something like that, a strength program addresses all of those potentially, but also can, in conjunction, kind of address any ailments or asymmetries, like we said, that might be on the way.
Now, you mentioned a fitness program, which is a wonderful thing, but what you do goes well beyond a fitness program in the conventional sense, because when I hear fitness program, I think, hey, I'm going to go to a gym somewhere, grab a membership, hop on a treadmill, and spend my hour on that, which again, there's nothing wrong with. But what I know of you, your knowledge goes incredibly in depth in biomechanics. You truly know the movement of the human body. Is there a difference between going and getting a gym membership and getting on a treadmill and talking to somebody like you who thoroughly knows the movement of the body? And is there an in-between there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My answer, I think, is probably that any of it is better than none of it, because a lot of the time coming to somebody like me can be potentially intimidating. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who are so intimidated by just the gym in general that having a little bit of hand-holding by somebody like me can be more or less intimidating to them. I've encountered both of those kind of people. But to get back to your original question, there is definitely a benefit to having someone who's knowledgeable in the field to leading you on a program that will benefit you more optimally. That's kind of the term I always tend to think of when I'm working with my people. Is there something with respect to their goal, what is most optimal to them based on what they want and based on what I'm seeing that they need, their body needs. So I think you can do something like that, working one-on-one with someone who's well equipped in the field to get to that kind of more optimal setting. But working in a capacity that is optimal to you isn't really necessary to get more fit or more healthy either. I kind of place that upon myself because these people are paying me to work with them in a lot of scenarios one-on-one. And so I'm looking to get them the biggest bang for their buck that I can. If it's someone I'm working with online where I'm not one-on-one with the person, I'm certainly still working for them as hard as I can in developing a program and checking in with them. But there's not as much hand-holding, obviously, because they're going off to do their exercises on their own. So I would say that's probably the middle ground. If I had to come up with an area, is having a guided program still, and someone who checks in with you on areas outside of that, like how are you, how is your diet, what are we looking like today? Are you sticking with what our goals are outside of the gym as well? Are you trying to get as much sleep as you need? Are you working on maybe meditating to help kind of resolve some of the stressful issues that you're dealing with? Are you, going outside instead of spending all day inside watching TV when you have your downtime, that kind of stuff. So I think maybe online work with someone might be the middle ground to that, but there definitely are two ends of the spectrum with that too. Again, the treadmill, just going in there and into a big box chain gym and doing that is better than nothing, but there could be more done for sure too. It maybe is a good way to kind of get your feet wet and get more comfortable with the space. That might be a good way to look at it.
I agree. And you mentioned something like meditating or going outside. Most people would not just immediately jump to that as part of a fitness routine.
Yeah.
Because when you think fitness routine, you think working out,
right,
maybe having a personal trainer. You don't necessarily think about meditation or kind of resolving the mental fitness aspect of it. So what has you including that as part of your routine?
I think being in this field for a while has probably gotten me to that.
Okay.
There have been a number of people that I've worked with that have had schedules that are difficult to manage. In fact, probably all of my clients have had schedules that are difficult to manage, right? Especially the ones that I'm working with now. I can recognize, especially if it's someone who's a business owner, let's say, I think it's tough to argue that those people do not have a schedule that's difficult to manage and they're getting pulled in all different directions all day long, right? But so many of those successful people are also able to say, this is the time that I have kind of sequestered away to take care of myself and my mind and my body, which I would argue probably has led to a lot of that success in their lives as well. So kind of keeping the machine running smoothly is so important from a physical standpoint, but a mental and spiritual standpoint as well. So like I said, kind of being in the field for a while has helped me recognize that. Early on, I did not do that for sure when I was just kind of coming into the industry and learning about like, okay, how do I help someone move effectively and create a program that's good for them in terms of just doing exercise like you were saying. But I've certainly recognized how that affects, checking those other boxes affects the exercise box as well. Like, and all of them kind of work together to create just more of a healthy individual. Was that all of your question? I got a little sidetracked there.
No, you didn't
Okay.
actually. Yeah, it answered it fantastically. Because I know anytime we get together, we do talk about the whole integrated approach and how, just like if you have asymmetry and one muscle has to work more to compensate for the other muscle, it's the same when it comes to our mental health, with our physical health, with our nutrition. If we're not eating well, then our muscles aren't getting what they need as far as nutrients in order to work. And so putting together the whole package, where if we're only focused on going and working with someone who sees one slice of it, they may not be integrating all of that together.
Right. And I think this is the direction that my industry is kind of going right now. The people who have been in a while at least are going that direction to say, okay, yeah, we've got the exercise part pretty covered. We're going to get that even if it's not there now because you're continuing to meet with me. I'm going to help you do it. But to go beyond that and really get you healing as an entire individual, these are the other places we need to go also. But I've never heard anybody say it just like you did, and it really made me realize that there certainly could be, as a whole individual, you can have an asymmetry between your mental health and your physical health. I could be very physically healthy and very mentally unhealthy at the same time. That's certainly an asymmetry. You could be emotionally very unsatisfied and have an asymmetry there as well. That's a good way to look at it. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. And it happens so often that I know one of the amazing parts about getting to team up with you was we got to really talk about the different programs that we had put together for this client and how we could best be in service of this individual. And as we did that, we started building things out together because you brought skills to the table that I didn't have. And likewise, we just started learning so much from each other.
Right, yeah, it's great.
And it helped us both. I learned things about human movement that I had never learned in all of the classes that I had taken.
Oh, that's great.
And, we just started building things. And I would love if you would share some of the course that you designed on biomechanics, that introductory course, because that helped me. Even though I had taken kinesiology and had a background in some of this, I still learned things from that introductory course where I was like, wow, that was put in a way that nobody has ever said to me before.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So can you share a little bit about that course and why you built it and any of the details from it?
Yeah, the goal of the course was to provide people who are really not in the field with some very digestible material to kind of help empower them to go to doctor's visits or like I said, I'm kind of more in the orthopedic kind of realm. So I tended to think a little bit more about, okay, if someone's going to see an orthopedic surgeon, then what kind of things do they need to understand about if they're getting their hip looked at, for example, if they're maybe considering having a hip replacement, total hip arthroplasty, what kind of knowledge do they need to go in to be armed well to ask the right questions and just feel more comfortable in that environment? Because when you go to the doctor, and I think this is kind of how a lot of people approach it, the impression is that a doctor is your advocate. And I do firmly believe that those doctors are doing what they believe is the best for you. But if I'm someone who is trained in a scope, right? I can see like this, that is in the realm of taking a joint out that has been damaged and putting a new one in that is artificial. That's probably where I'm going to think, right, in terms of healing an individual. I think when I talk with people about this who I work with, I tell them to think about the doctor as more of an advisor, not an advocate, but an advisor. And so this person is giving you advice on what they think is best for you. But what they think is best may not be the correct answer, right? So I think that what my goal with the course, then getting back to that, was to try and arm them with the knowledge to make themselves their own advocate and be able to say, okay, thank you for your input, doctor. I'm going to also go get a second opinion from another person in your field. That's a great idea to do. I'm also going to look at maybe some holistic methods that might be able to help me with my arthritis if that's what's going on. How do I kind of calm this? Is there something that I can do with somebody like me just to kind of strengthen above and below the joint? Because that's been shown to help a lot as well with arthritic joints. So I kind of think if you approach it from that kind of mindset, then you'll have better outcomes in the long run. Maybe joint replacement is the answer. Maybe that joint has become so degraded that is what needs to happen to have you have a better quality of life. Then I'm all for it. But let's look at all options on the table and understand how to find those options by having a little bit of more knowledge in the field to be able to find those in the first place. Because if you're walking into that realm, if you're unarmed, then this is really the only option in front of you. You know.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have anywhere I just feel like you don't have anywhere to go to get that knowledge in the first place. So hopefully that course helps people in that way.
It takes away some of that overwhelmed feeling, because otherwise all you have is the internet.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a great tool, but it's so broad and you don't really know where the information's coming from that it can be convoluted and misleading as well. So if you're someone who is a teacher, let's say, and you're going into that doctor's office, you don't really have any knowledge on your side at that point, just what's being brought to you. And maybe that doctor, if you ask the right questions, they probably wouldn't volunteer this information up front, not because they're being withholding or anything, but just because it doesn't cross their mind. But if you have enough wherewithal to say, okay, doctor, I like what this total joint replacement is looking like. Is there somebody else that you think might also be able to benefit me? Maybe there's someone who does, I don't know, some kind of an injection that can help just calm this joint down to where maybe surgery isn't the way for me to go. And they wouldn't say, no, you definitely just do surgery. And if that surgeon does that, then that joint better be pretty messed up. Like if they're going like hard and fast, you need to do a joint replacement, then it should be clear. And if you get your second opinion, then they should say the same thing. If they don't, and they say, yeah, I have someone who's a pain specialist that might actually be able to help you, or physical therapy might be the way you need to go. But if you're doing that, you're still relying on just what that one person is saying to you, right? Like you're kind of just going wherever you're pointed. I think it's just important to go into a situation with as much knowledge arming you as you possibly can.
So to give an example, say I have something going on with my knee, and I go in and they say, oh, it would be a great idea for you to consider a knee replacement. If I were to call you and say, Jim, I just got word that they're telling me I should do a knee replacement, what kinds of things might you suggest that, even if I wasn't able to give you information that the doctor gave, could you give me a couple of things to ask my doctor?
Yeah, oh, definitely. The first thing I would ask him is if it's that advanced to where he's recommending the knee replacement, I would first ask you if you've done physical therapy for it, or if you've done any exercising at all for it, to try and strengthen around that joint to make it more capable on its own. When you strengthen above and below the joint, that one that is due for replacement or is just super arthritic in general, that tends to lessen a lot of the pain. And if it's osteoarthritis, which is the kind of one that just is wearing away of the joint, it's not as opposed to rheumatoid arthritis, which is your immune system actually attacking the joint tissue, which exercise can help with as well, by the way. If it's osteoarthritis, then you're not going to really damage the joint by doing exercise. Even though it will be kind of uncomfortable, there'll be a certain degree of pain with it. Unless it's like a high order level of pain, then that's just the joint functioning how it's functioning right now. There's some tissue in there that is damaged for sure, and it's inflamed, but you don't increase that damage by doing the exercises if you're doing the right exercises anyways. So that's the first place I would go with them, is to ask them if physical therapy is appropriate, if that doctor's really pushing them for the joint replacement. If they haven't done physical therapy, then ask them if that is an appropriate route to go. And I would recommend them getting evaluated in the first place. If we're talking about a major surgery and you haven't even explored the option of physical therapy, then that seems kind of crazy to me. But that's the first thing that I would ask. And then I would look to ask them if there's any holistic things that they're aware of that I should go to too, or if they have anybody that's a friend in the field maybe. Again, that's kind of going wherever somebody points you, but at least you're looking at what other options you have potentially.
Okay. Holistic.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned holistic. I know for some people what does that word even mean? It seems like such a broad field.
Yeah, and sometimes it makes people go like, oh, I don't want to do that. I think holistic for me is really at this point just alternative. So what is the mainstream option that Western medicine kind of funnels you into right now? And anything outside of that is really alternative to me. And I guess that it's become such a catch-all term, holistic, that it's, I guess, embodied that for me. Maybe I need to change up my verbiage a little bit. But in the scenario of your example, the mainstream approach would be that total knee arthroplasty, the total knee replacement. And then anything that is not an injection or a surgery would be the alternative.
So if you're going to use arnica cream to see if you can start to reduce some of the inflammation, that could be an alternative or a holistic practice.
Very, very low risk one, yeah.
Yeah. And you're not going to lose anything by sampling it.
Right.
So there are so many options like that. And that's where somebody like me comes in.
Yeah.
Where I have like a plethora of different holistic options, but it's low risk and potential high reward, where we can find that out together. And working with someone like you who has the awareness of the movement, if I need a knee replacement, it could be again that maybe I just have asymmetry and I'm overusing the one knee because my other knee or my other leg is throwing me off to one side.
Yep. And I always like to throw this in there because knees get kind of a bad rap, but it's almost never the knee's fault. I know that was just your example, but the knee, I think we talked about this in the course actually, the knee is a lot of the time that weakest link that just shows something is wrong. If I've got a weakness in my hip or a limited ability in my hip, whether that's range or strength, that can translate to a knee issue down the road. If it's something that's coming from my foot and ankle, weakness there, or maybe, whatever, maybe limited range there as well, that can translate to a knee issue. So that knee really doesn't have much that it can do to do something wrong. It's usually something else that's kind of pushing it around for a long period of time, and then it eventually just can't take it anymore. It's like, okay, now I have an issue. Here's some pain.
Yeah. The flag is coming out.
Yep.
Hello.
Yep. I can't take it anymore.
You've thrown me to the wolves as much as you can.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Exactly.
So what got you interested in this field in the first place?
I actually was thinking about going into physical therapy at one point. And it's a field that still definitely interests me, but I was working with a physical therapy clinic that didn't do a whole lot of fitness stuff. I started working with them to see if this is a field I wanted to pursue further. I was already in fitness at the time. Started working with them. After a little while of working with them, I approached them and said, hey, you guys don't really do anything for people who are done with physical therapy. When you discharge them, they're kind of just thrown to the wind. They give them a home exercise program, and they're kind of held to their own devices to do that. They understand it for sure when they leave, but the people who continue with that, it's like in the 1% to 9% kind of range. It's not common for people to continue doing those. And if you do continue doing them after the fact, they help you, but you get a little bit less return on any kind of routine you do, like repetitively. If I do a routine for 1 month, I'll probably get a good return on that for a little while. But if I go on to a second month doing the exact same thing, same number of days, same number of reps, all that kind of stuff, same exercises, less return in that month. Month 3, even less return, until your body, it's so adaptable. Eventually, it's just kind of like, okay, well, this is like walking for me now. I'm not really going to get any stronger from this. It's kind of maintaining me, I suppose. So the home exercise program is important because it at least is making sure that things aren't getting weaker. But if we're looking to continue to progress, it's not going to do it. What was the original question?
What got you interested in the field?
That's right. So I approached them eventually, recognizing that there were a lot of these patients who were getting their home exercise program, getting discharged, and then feeling uncomfortable going back to a box or a chain gym because they were fearful, and rightfully so, that even if they were to do training with a personal trainer there, that person probably isn't well versed in whatever their condition was that they were just working with, whether it was that chronic low back pain, maybe some kind of a disc issue, or maybe they had just had a joint replacement. That person's probably not going to be super understanding of what's going on. or let alone having worked with somebody like that in the past. And so my idea was to try and create that for the company, which we did. And what they came back to me with there was, if we create this and then you go to physical therapy school, what are we going to do with this program that we just created? And I said, well, if we do that, then I probably won't go, because I really enjoy working with this population. And I really enjoy working in fitness also. And if I can marry those two, then that's probably the route that I'll go. And that's what we did.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a program that could be rolled out to other physical therapy locations?
There are a lot of them that have done that already. I don't know the credentialing of the people that they have running them. I'm sure they're credentialed, at least I can assume they are, but I don't really know of any other companies. The company that I was working with is pretty small. Okay. And so I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to the other ones. But I know that it's become common practice for those companies, like physical therapy companies, to have a fitness component. Has become fairly common at this point.
Okay. Well, look at you, trendsetter.
Well, I don't know if it was me, but
at least
maybe
you were
it was just the right time.
Early on.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then you transitioned out of that and started Empowered Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So in Empowered Fitness, what do you do? What is the flow of the organization, and what's on the horizon for you?
Well, I still work with individual clients one-on-one, so that hasn't changed. But Empowered was kind of born with the idea that my time is kind of like my scarcest commodity, especially as I've taken on more clients. My time just becomes more and more scarce. So I don't really have any other room to put one-on-one clients at this point. And I also recognize that time is pretty pricey. Not everybody can afford that. And that was kind of like my big motivator to creating Empowered, was bringing the cost down greatly, and then also making it more accessible to everybody, just by way of me not being able to work, one-on-one with everybody every day. So Empowered does online workouts, like we were talking about with our mutual client doing now. And it's just a lot more cost effective. So making it accessible to everyone was my goal. It's continuing to evolve. So the price point that I'm working at it now, I'm actively working to dramatically reduce that. It's not there at this point to be released yet, but that's the direction that it's going, is to continue to make it more accessible and more variable. So for people who have those kind of maybe, I call it post-rehabilitative, as someone who's coming out of the physical therapy environment with that total hip or that low back pain or shoulder pain or neck pain or whatever it is, creating this program to be able to address all of those things is something that I've found to be fairly unique for online training right now. People don't really seem to have a program to go to for that. So that's where the goal of it, the company is. That's what its kind of mission is.
There's an altruistic component to it too that I know we've talked about, which is the desire to help individuals, to really empower them with the knowledge and the ability to have that care that you're able to offer people one-on-one. And so there is a part of you that desires to make certain that everyone has access to affordable, or even in some cases free content that can help them be healthy, and if they've had an injury, reacclimate in a way that assists them. Right.
Make them functional again is the idea. And working with a personal trainer can certainly be costly. And like I said, that was kind of the primary goal, was to reduce that cost and make it accessible and make it so everyone is able to, I'm trying to just eliminate the excuse of, I don't know what to do. That's so common, and I understand why, because not everybody's, we've talked about the comfort thing, not everybody's been in that environment to become comfortable with it and just kind of learn almost by osmosis to be able to do this. You see other people doing exercise in the gym, but if you don't want to go in there in the first place, you don't have exposure to it, and it just is intimidating. So being able to say, okay, well, I'm going to empower you with this program. This was made for you, based on what you've told me you want to do, what your goals are, how often you can work out, how much time you have to work out in those bouts, the limitations that you've got right now. This was made for you, Amber. And that, in my mind, eliminates a lot of excuses right there. If you told me that I only have 2 days a week that I can work out, it's Monday and Friday that I can do. That's what I will commit to. but I only really have 30 minutes those days because I'm able to get it in at lunch, or I'm able to do it right before I pick up my kids, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, great. Here's, based on what your goals are, your goal of wanting to feel more effective and more capable as a hiker, let's say. Here's the exercises that we've selected for you. Here's Monday, here's Friday. You should be able to get these done in 30 minutes as long as you're not slacking through them and taking really, really long rests or anything. Have the rest program in there as well, so you know how long to take between exercises, and that's what you're doing. So even I've found that even if you're someone who is more comfortable with exercise, if you've been given this routine and you're just able to not have to think about, okay, what am I doing today? You have really removed a barrier for yourself to get in there and get going. Maybe you have to work out at home too as a result of not wanting to go to the gym. That's fine. We can work with all that kind of stuff, but just trying to remove as many barriers as you can to make people empowered to be able to get a handle on their own fitness.
Yeah. Well, and holding them accountable.
Yeah.
So empowering them and then holding them accountable for what they said they would do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's where coaching has such high value. And having a coach who cares and not someone who is just, I'll hand you something and then I won't follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And having been in a position where I have been linked with you in such a capacity, that has been the case. So what impact do you feel that has had on the results that your clients have seen?
Having scheduled check-ins and
Having
stuff like
scheduled check-ins and a heart-centered connection with your clients.
It's everything for a lot of them, for sure. There are definitely people who are self-motivated to do that kind of stuff because they have a genuine interest and they just enjoy it maybe. Those are the exception. And so having someone that you know is going to check in with you at the end of the week or whenever the scheduled check-in is really increases the accountability and the motivation, frankly, too. They don't want to have to come in and say, oh, I didn't really do any of them this week, because the first thing I'm going to say is like, well, what are we doing? Because you came to me and my understanding was that you have this time available. We agreed upon it. We committed to it. So what happened in the act of doing here that kept you from doing it? Was it that you just were afraid that you couldn't get to where you want, even with the program? Is it that you just were depressed? You know, what is it going on in the background that's keeping you from doing it? Oh, I feel like I actually might be depressed, or maybe I didn't sleep enough the night before. These are all things that we can kind of address as a result. But having someone who just kind of plainly lay it out like that and say what's going on really takes the success level to a higher degree.
Yeah. And then building a community even around that it creates a next step where they know that they're not in this alone too.
Yeah.
And so there's all these levels that can be built up, but it has to start with that heart. And that's one thing that I've witnessed from you in spades. And with our theme this month being vulnerability, what do you feel vulnerability, what role does it have in what you do and how you guide these individuals and coach them, especially coming off of an injury?
Yeah, vulnerability is a huge component to understand from the health coach trainer side of things. I think I shared this story with you a while ago, but I'll share it here also. When I was working in the big box chain gym setting, and I was still just kind of getting to understand things and learning how my degree applies to like actually working with people in a real world practical setting. I was also socially kind of getting my feet wet and understanding what it means to work with a real body versus just, a research paper. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so this is one that I still think about actually. One of the biggest ones of those for me was I was in an area of the gym with, a little bit of background. When a new member joins a gym in these big box settings, you usually get a free workout with a personal trainer. And that is to see if you like it, see if you like the trainer, see if it's something a service you want. Do you know what you want to do in the gym? Do you even know where everything is? That kind of stuff. So it just gets you a little bit more comfortable in there is the idea. And lets the service be advertised as well. So I was working with this new member on her first workout. Maybe it was her second workout. This particular company would let you do 2 or 3. to get a feel for the trainer. And we were in a part of the gym where people usually do like a lot of ab work. So you're like laying down. They tend to be at their end of the workout also, so there's a lot more socializing. And I was in one area of the room with this lady who we were developing good rapport. Like she was conversational and comfortable with me and everything. Everything was going great. I could tell she wasn't comfortable in the gym though. Like she certainly had just she just kind of felt a little anxious. So we're in one area, we're kind of doing our thing, finishing up our workout, and there's two other ladies that are across the room, nowhere near us at all, that are having an A to B conversation, like probably not even aware that we're there. And one of them said, Lady A says to Lady B something that's funny, and Lady B laughs at it, and then Lady A is kind of like laughing as well. And she thought they were laughing at them. And I kind of tried to talk her down a little bit. Like this, she was upset. Like she's kind of looking over at him, and she was just very, like, you could see her body language shift. And I downplayed it. Like they don't even know we're here. Like they're definitely not. No one cares what we're doing over here. This is us over here. And she was convinced that they were laughing at her just because she thought she did something wrong. Again, she was uncomfortable in that environment. But that totally opened my eyes to the vulnerability of that individual, or any individual who's just not acclimated to that kind of gym setting, because it is intimidating in there for sure, and especially those big ones where there's people who are just throwing weights around and stuff like that. But it also, she wasn't a super overweight individual or anything like that. She was just an average kind of lady. But it really helped me kind of daisy chain the thought process of, what if you're someone who is hyper obese, and trying to, like, the guts it takes to walk into a place like that and say, like, I think I need to come in here because I recognize I need to do something. That alone right there takes so much just courage to do, because you are sticking out like a sore thumb, right? And they're already body conscious and everything. So I think that was such a powerful lesson for me that I still continue to carry with me for sure. And I think I don't know that everybody's got a story like that, but I think it's really important to have that kind of understanding for sure. Not everybody wants to have a trainer. Some people do, but not everybody wants a trainer who's like, okay, let's get 20 more of those push-ups, and someone yelling at them right over that drill instructor kind of thing. That's not what most people want. They want someone who's going to help them for sure and be tough, have some tough love, but recognize certainly that this is a civilian, like a regular person who's not accustomed to this kind of environment, and they're vulnerable for sure.
Yeah, to see them as a person,
right?
And so, yeah, I can almost feel myself as the person that you are working with, because even owning a gym at one point in my life.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I felt very uncomfortable in my own gym.
Oh, really?
Because there were people who it was their life.
Yeah.
Like, they lived in there.
Yeah.
I lived in there because I owned it. But they were in there almost as much as I was.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a very uncomfortable feeling, because you start to feel inadequate if you don't know that it isn't about how much weight you can bench press or how many reps of something you can do. And that's where the professional can come in and help. Yeah,
I think that can be very, very valuable, to be just that almost kind of buffer for that client individual, to just have someone there who is a little bit more seasoned and more comfortable in there to make them just feel more welcome. But again, the big box gym is not really necessary even anymore. So there's a lot of, if you are somebody who's not comfortable with that, that's okay. There's lots of options at this point to be able to get around that. There's a lot of smaller gyms. There's a lot of studio gyms. There's a lot of studio gyms that are owned by personal trainers too. So you have a lot of options at your disposal. You can do a lot of your stuff at home now at this point too. So it's a good time to bring fitness to a lot more people who otherwise might not be comfortable going into those bigger gyms that were so dominant even just 10 years ago. Back to my story, I wish, as I'm telling you that, I was thinking, I really wish I knew whether that lady did not work with me one-on-one. We kind of did through our thing in our 1 to 2 sessions that she had, or 1 to 3 sessions she had with her membership. I kind of set her up because we knew up front that she wasn't really interested in paying more to do personal training. So we spent those 2 sessions going over, okay, here's some things that you can do that should be comfortable for you. Nothing that's like crazy. A lot of people are intimidated by the free weight area, like where there's dumbbells and people just throwing them around and all that stuff. So we can stay in this area. It's a little more comfortable for you. You can do stuff with the medicine balls, all that kind of stuff. But what I don't know is if she continued going to the gym, and I really wish I did, because it'd be interesting to know if that was enough to bring her into her comfort level to keep coming back long term.
Yeah, it would be.
I know.
Or maybe she took that information and bought her own.
Could be.
And just started to do it at home.
Could be, yeah.
Because that's something I would have found myself doing.
So where was your gym?
It was just up the street from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
Anytime Fitness.
Oh.
I was part of a buy-in to one of those.
Those are franchises, right?
They are.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's great.
I have a membership to one of those, actually. And I guess I have a membership to all of them because I think that's how it works, right?
Huh,
yeah.
Yes.
And I actually really like it.
Yeah.
That's probably the place that I go as much as anywhere. I've got a few gym memberships just by way of like clients that I've had that had like hotel or apartment gyms and stuff like that. But that's the one that is for me that I really actually like a lot.
Yeah, it is small enough. And it's open 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
so
it's fantastic.
That's what I mean. I used to live there pretty much because I was always there.
Cool.
But there were people who were in there more than I was. I was
That's
like,
funny.
okay, maybe I should just give you a job and a free membership.
Yeah, there you go.
You can take care of it.
Cool. How long ago was that?
Probably 7 years ago at this point.
Neat.
So,
Never knew that.
Yeah, all the things you learn.
Mm-hmm.
This interesting little path. And we were one of the first that had like a meditation room within it. And we were looking at this whole holistic approach because as we were talking, asymmetry, it happens on all levels.
Yeah.
And some of the things we talk about when we get together are all the different bodies that we have. And if we only focus on one, then we could be throwing some of the others out of sync. And so those were some of the things we were incorporating.
That's cool. I haven't seen one that had anything like that, but they're all unique as well. Something that I've noticed. There have been maybe 3 of them or something, but yeah, they're all different for sure.
Yeah, they allowed us to do like different things
That's
in
cool.
different ones.
That's cool.
So, yeah, good company.
Mm-hmm.
As you are progressing in even what you're starting to incorporate, because some of the things that we've been talking about are those integrated approaches, and you've navigated into some of that view. How are you bringing that more and more into what you're doing, that more integrative look and approach to seeing the whole person and all of those bodies that we just talked about, the mental, the emotional, the physical, even the spiritual aspect of someone. How are you starting to incorporate that? Because as you said, you started just looking at the physical person and now you're branching out. What does that look like for you?
I think for me, a lot of that comes from just having casual conversations with my clients as we're going through our sessions, especially because I see these people fairly regularly. This is something that I haven't been able to recreate yet with online, other than just doing check-ins, which are much less common and probably a little bit more formal than when I'm working with somebody online. But when I'm working with somebody in person, but for those in-person clients, a lot of that stuff, whether it's intentional on my part or really just by organically happening in conversation, that stuff will kind of boil up to the top. So if, for example, someone's been overly stressed at work and they aren't able to sleep because of some deadline that's looming, or maybe things aren't going so well, or whatever it is, that tends to come up. And then we could say, well, yeah, I understand that sucks that it's that hard at work for you right now. Maybe there's some ways that we can address the sleep issue and make you just feel more well rested when you wake up the next day, and heal more effectively, because that's when you're doing that, right? So you need your sleep to recover just even from your workouts. But something like that as an example might just come up in that conversation, and then we can kind of address it a little bit more there. Or maybe you're just feeling emotionally drained. What are some strategies then we can come up with to help address that kind of stuff? There are definitely times, though, where knowing more just by way of knowing you and Austin and kind of having our conversations, that I recognize there are times where I am not the best equipped to deal with that kind of stuff. And that's been empowering for me to understand that a little bit more fully and say, okay, well, I recognize what's going on here. Here are maybe some resources that you might want to look into and make that decision on your own if you want to go that route. But I'm recognizing a problem here just with the limited knowledge that I have, and here's what I think might help you as well.
It's vulnerability on your part.
Yeah.
And so that helps in both ways.
Mm-hmm.
When everyone's willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, you know what, it's not my specialty.
Yeah.
And recommend out, I think that is a huge strength. So.
And it's more valuable for the client too. It's the person that I'm working with and trying to help. So I mean, if it's me being a little bit more vulnerable to help them get there, then that's an easy cost to pay.
Well, for you.
Yeah.
I would say that there are those who do attempt to be everything for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that when we're talking about making certain that you ask the questions going in for your best care and your best health, whether that's before you go in for a joint replacement or even before you find a coach. These are questions
mm-hmm.
that you really should be asking to make certain, like, what do I know about a person that's going to be helping me at a base level, whether that's with my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health. Is this a fit?
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone must be their own advocate
right.
for their own health.
Yep, totally agree.
So as we're wrapping up in the time that we have together here on the podcast, what advice could you give someone for just mobility overall? If someone is facing mobility issues and they're concerned about getting up and doing anything because they feel it might cause more damage, is there any advice that you could give to someone
mm-hmm.
to help them?
Yeah, I think you probably first need to know what it is that's causing that. If you're so fearful that you're doing damage by just moving, it's important in my mind that you understand what is the cause of this. Is it an osteoarthritic issue? If that's the case, then there's not as much cause for concern for just getting you moving. If it's something that's more serious, like the rheumatoid we brought up earlier as well, rheumatoid arthritis, where you're having an autoimmune issue that's attacking joint tissue, then you need to be seeing someone who is a specialist in that and helping get that at least under some kind of control. And there are holistic options that potentially can help with that as well, but that's something that needs to be understood at least. What is causing this issue that I'm feeling? Is it an old injury? Whatever. From there, the most cost-effective thing that I can come up with for someone just to get them moving and is easy to do is something like YouTube yoga. So there are so many options on YouTube even. I use these myself for just like a getting going in the morning routine occasionally. But if you're someone who's just starting out and you have no idea what to do and you're feeling demotivated because you don't know what to do and you're just looking to try and do something, that's a great place to start for a routine. 5 to 10 minutes. You can just literally search 5-minute morning yoga routine. And right there, it's free for you to look at. And they will guide you through the entire process. It's not a big step, but that's kind of the idea initially, is you're just trying to take a small step and have a small victory and then expand upon that. And once you're comfortable with that and you're saying, okay, well, I've actually got the ball rolling a little bit here. Now, what's the next step? Then I can look towards an online program that's made for me, or working with a personal trainer one-on-one, or maybe just joining a gym if you're comfortable enough with it and doing something on your own. Those are all options that are viable. Maybe buying a little bit of equipment for your house, whether it's just TheraBands or a physio ball. You don't need my big recommendation for people who are looking to do home training on their own, home exercising, is look at getting adjustable TheraBands, a physio ball, and maybe some TheraLoops. And those 3 things right there, that's like $50, $40, $60, something like that.
Okay. And they could look that up online.
Amazon.
I was going to say, yeah.
The big
if
box,
that's
of course.
Foreign language to them.
Ruling the world company now. But you could go to Big 5 Sports and find all that stuff too. I don't really know what the cost is there. It's probably pretty comparable. But those 3 items open up so much possibility to you in terms of what you're able to do just at your house. There's a good amount you can do with body weight too, but you will run out of enough variability there eventually to kind of keep you satisfied and interested. So those 3 things are the first ones I go for.
Okay. And I know you had mentioned earlier, make sure that you rotate things because your body will learn.
It's very adaptable. Yeah, it'll it'll seek to make that your new foundation, or baseline. Maybe it moves the baseline to say, okay, well, now I'm good at doing this kind of routine. That's the standard now. You're not going to get anything else out of that. So you need to change it. You need to shift move the target and make your body now adapt to this over here. And now once that's adapted to that, we're going to move over here. And it just kind of continually has to adapt. It doesn't necessarily have to keep upping the bar and the difficulty and move more weight on the bar or anything like that. It's just change it, and you'll get more bang for your buck that way, continue to do it that way.
And if they would like to get a hold of you through Empowered Fitness.
Yep, you can go on the website, www.empoweredfit.com. It's letter M, poweredfit.com. It's kind of meant to be a play on I'm empowered, like joining of those two words. So letter M, poweredfit.com. Or you could reach out to me at jgibson@empoweredfit.com as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Always awesome to soak in your knowledge of how the body works
It's
and how it moves.
always awesome for me to wring some out. So.
Yay. And thank you all for being here with us. I am your host, Amber, with the Heart Leader Podcast. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you in the Sweet Era community.